What if you woke up one day and discovered that nothing, nobody in your life was as it seemed? It happened to a Twin Cities woman, and that discovery sent Mary Makros on a search of a lifetime. Tonight in Dimension takes you along on Mary's emotional search for the truth. Here's Trish Van Pilsum.
1, 2.
In the sizzle of the cities in '64, there were few spots hotter than a beer joint called the CC Tap.
There's no doubt about it. CC was a jumping place.
And in the winter of that year, it jumped to the music of a band called the Impacts 4.
My baby walks and walks, my baby talks and talks.
The best band that they had in South Minneapolis at that time.
Walking, talking, her home.
Fans flocked to the CC Tap, so many police had to hold them off. But a woman named Audrey, recently divorced, got close enough to know the band's drummer, Willie V. Roberts, intimately. She was 22 and never saw him again. And for a long time, no one but Audrey knew all that that brief encounter had put into play. A lie that would span 2 decades, a 13-year search for the truth, and finally, a miracle.
Everyone's okay then? Yeah, we got okay.
The lie, it turned out, was Mary Makros' life.
I just needed to know where I came from and who I, to make me feel whole.
Mary and her older sister were raised by paternal grandparents after Audrey, their mother, moved away. The girls assumed they had the same father until Mary was 15. That's when she snuck into her grandparents' room and peeked at legal papers she was never supposed to see.
And in those papers, it said that I had a different father than my sister. So then I confronted everybody and nobody would answer me.
For a kid who'd felt rejected by her mother, the discovery of an unknown father who just might want her was both tantalizing and terrifying.
I always had a feeling.
At the age of 22, she finally asked her mother for the truth.
I said, "Mom, is Dad my real dad?" And her mouth dropped and she said, "It's time to open up the can of worms."
Audrey confessed that Mary's father was Willie V. Roberts, the drummer she'd met at the CC Tap. The reason she'd never told? She was afraid it would hurt her daughter. Audrey then told Mary everything she knew about Roberts, which wasn't much. He was a couple of years older than her. He had dark brown hair with a little curl on the forehead. And he had no idea he had a daughter. Mary's search took her back to the bar where it all began.
I would have probably given her a better chance of winning the Powerball.
Thanks, bud.
But one old-timer, a guy named Skinner, remembered the drummer.
And what really got me is he grabbed my hand and he held it and he said, "When I look at you, I see your father."
It was the first sign that she was at least on the trail of the right man. There were nothing but dead ends from there.
And I started to think maybe he was dead.
Discouraged, Mary decided to hire a private investigator. PI Walt Powers spent a little time on the computer and a lot of time on the phone. Within 2 days, he found a William V. Roberts in Phoenix and gave him a call.
He enlightened me that very possibly I had a daughter.
The other end of the line is just absolutely dead.
I was in shock, I guess is the best description.
Minutes later, Mary's phone rang.
And he said, "Hello, Mary, this is Walt Powers." And I froze.
And I said, "Well, Mary, I think I just spent the last 45 minutes talking to your dad."
And I'm just shaking.
There was about a 5-second silence on the other end, and then I thought my phone exploded.
They found my daddy.
Finding her dad was one thing. Finding out whether he'd want anything to do with her was something else.
I dialed his number. I dialed it wrong the first time, so I had to hang up. And then I called back, and he picked up the phone on the first ring.
I answered the phone, "Hello, Mary."
And I said, "I've been waiting 35 years to hear you say that." Thank you. This is my daddy.
19 days later, Mary was in her dad's arms.
When I looked up at him and I saw his eyes and he was looking into my eyes, I knew that everything would be okay.
At the time, Mary told herself and everyone else she was just looking for answers, for medical and genetic information to pass along to her own 2 kids. That may have been the biggest lie of all.
I wanted a relationship. I wanted to know everything about him.
Now, Mary tries not to dwell on what might have been, both for her and for her dad.
I missed a lot of time with somebody that could have been very dear and very special.
You see, Will Roberts and his wife Marcy were only able to have 1 child. They always wanted a daughter. Their son Kirk wanted a sister so badly he invented an imaginary one.
Well, I don't know who all he told, but he certainly told me that he did, in fact, have a baby sister. But nobody knew about it except he and his daddy.
You could say that Mary is that secret sister.
And had I known about Mary, I would have fought a grizzly bear. And that's saying a lot for somebody my size.
That's the trouble with secrets.
He said that if he would have known, he said, hell or high water, I would have been there, and I believe him.
They keep people apart.
And there's nothing short of God himself that's going to separate us for the rest of our lives.
And rarely
Nothing.
do they find each other.
Nothing.
For Dimension, I'm Trish Van Pilsum.
Mary and her husband and 2 daughters will spend Christmas in Phoenix with her biological dad.